So now we are on the record. I'll share with you my my screen for a moment so that we can just have a quick look on the agenda, and then I give the floor to our facilitators of today's session. Great, so let me just share the screen with you. I hope you can all see it. Yeah. At the beginning, just very quick invitation. You can see here on the left side a cartoon. The story actually behind this cartoon you can find in the link that we provided to you, and of course we'll share the presentation with you after the session. And actually this is a cartoon made by one of our volunteers in the pilot project, the EUAV Volunteers Deployment Pilot Project in Ecuador. This is a little bit like the reflection of how their experience evolved upon the time of being there. And let's just have a quick look at the agenda. So we'll start with a quick introduction just to maybe discuss among each other how this volunteering in humanitarian context is different from other volunteering schemes that we know, that we all been involved in. Then we'll get to EUAV Volunteers Initiative itself. So we'll have a look on the legal framework. We'll have a look on a very important issue. This is one of the standards, also partnership principles and agreements, how this should be done under the EUAV Volunteers Initiative. Don't worry, we'll have breaks, at least 2. And then we'll dig into the main topic of today's session, so volunteering management cycle in the EUAV Volunteers Initiative. As I said, please share with us your thoughts, your impressions, your experiences at every point of the agenda. And at the end, we'll have a exercise based on a real case scenario where we'll have a chance to discuss some issues that we already faced during the implementation of our deployment projects, or you can face in the future. Okay, great. So I will just give a floor to the first person. So it will be Peter from Volunteer Europe that will guide us, that will introduce us and maybe just prompt the discussion among each other, how this type of volunteering is different from the others. Thank you.
Okay, can everybody see the screen again? I switched to my PowerPoint version. Does it work for everybody? Okay, great. So this one is working now. Okay. Good. So basically, why does this program exist, and what is its differences with existing volunteering schemes? Basically, this is the first program, to our knowledge, that exists that is a pan-European approach to have EU citizens directly involved in humanitarian aid policy. It aims to have at least 4,000 citizens deployed to the Global South by 2020, enabling them for the first time to really make a big impact within the Global South, and a meaningful impact. How is that being done? I should know, we also we are a consortium of standing and hosting organizations. And for both of these organizations, there's also something in, basically, we getting trained technically on how we better manage our volunteers, and we also help with the capacity building and the managing of volunteers in the country, in the hosting countries. As well, a big difference with many existing volunteering schemes is that volunteers will be trained in a training of at least 2 weeks, and probably longer, but more of that later during this webinar, and that they that we can actually ask for certain requirements, which I will also expand a bit more later. Now that differs quite a lot with programs we are active in within Volunteer, like let's say give the example of the EVS program, in which that involves transnational volunteering, but it's limited to Europe. And as well, the requirements to be active are not that strict. Now, what will the volunteers be doing? So every vacancy will have a term of reference in which the role of the volunteer will be very concretely be described. And basically, their biggest issue will be that they will help with resilience building in the global south. And just a second, I received chat here. Okay.
Don't worry, it's
yeah, I can't know it on full screen. I can't read the chat at the same time. Sorry. Basically, what they will be doing is, and there's two kinds of roles: junior and senior roles, and they will be involved in the activities which you can see on the screen. That's the technical side. Simultaneously, this project has the goal to raise awareness on fragile communities and forgotten crises, and to raise the awareness and to change best practices which exist. Now, next slide. What will our volunteers be doing? Well, they will help in pre-disaster phase, you can say, in resilience building. So, for example, helping to set up food safety reserves, ensuring access to clean water when the crisis comes, helping that when the crisis comes, basic hygiene and sanitation will be maintained, setting up shelters and safety procedures, and also providing early warning systems for incoming floods or storms. Now, in order to make a meaningful impact here, the deployment will also be quite long, between 1 and 18 months. Again, that's is a big difference with many existing local and national volunteering schemes, which can be part-time or in a few weeks. EVS, for example, has a minimum duration of 2 weeks, which is quite short. While here, we really want volunteers to be on the ground for quite some time. Also, there is no maximum age limit, which allows, like EVS has a maximum age limit of 30, so this allows for more older volunteers to make an impact. For those who cannot be this long presence, there will be online volunteering opportunities. And like I said, this is very long, and this is indeed the whole idea is with resilience building is that we prepare communities before crisis, afterwards help with rebuilding, preparing them for the next one, so in terms of the LRDD. But what we will not be doing is sending volunteers during emergencies. So at the moment the crisis strikes, our volunteers will not be present, and they will also not be in areas of armed conflicts. This is more something for Red Cross volunteers. Good. So, to sum it up, what will be the 3 goals will be like to raise awareness of global issues and by working together with other European volunteers and with global volunteers there, global citizenships and active solidarities will be reinforced. Volunteers will also really be able to pick up useful skills in management, in intercultural awareness. And local communities will be much more prepared for crisis, and this will help them to overcome issues faced by, for example, by climate change, to prevent pandemics, to cope with population movement, and this will in turn prevent conflicts, undernutrition, and poverty. So it's a reinforcing circle. That's more or less from my side, but what we would like to ask you is, of course, does this sound similar to projects you're already aware of or you're undertaking, or will you, do you know other projects that exist like this, and what do you think of this kind of project?
Any thoughts on it, just to start? Given your experience with EVS, maybe?
Yeah,
similar. In many ways, it's similar with EVS and other programs. Especially with EVS, it also has the purpose to strengthen local communities, to foster European and global active citizenship. maybe not so much focus on the global issues, although, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely true. It's like so EVS is limited to Europe mainly. Well, this is really going to the other continents as well. The big difference here is when we receive our EVS volunteers, we train them here in London. In this case, the training will also take place pre-deployment, which is the reason is that we really would like to see the right person on the right place on the right time. And so the terms of being allowed to do this volunteering are a bit stricter than EVS, of course.
Of course, like the profile that you are seeking now, like this technical side of it, like how is it primarily based on the needs assessment done with the hosting organization now, and so on. Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts here at this point about the added value of this type? Like, what about this actually citizens being directly involved in the European policy, right? Here it's like one of the tasks is dissemination of those values and principles of the European policy. Mm-hmm. Okay. If if we are still shy at this point, or like we need some warm up, no worries. We'll have still some spaces for that. Thank you so much, Peter, for this quick introduction. And then, let's get to
share now and transfer to the next speaker.
Great, thank you. And then let's get to Georgia. That will guide us through the legal framework and more. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, another time. So just a second, I try to share. Can you see the presentation? Okay, perfect. So if for you is okay, I can leave it like this, or otherwise I can put it full screen. I don't know.
Up to you. I mean, like, I think it's okay now. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Now, just because yesterday I could not be able to see your faces in the screen when sharing the presentation, but now it works so perfect.
Super.
Oops. Okay. So, yes, as you know, EUAV Volunteers Initiative has some mandatory standards for both the certification of the organizations participating in it, so both the descending and the hosting organizations, and these mandatory standards influence all the volunteering management cycle since the beginning, and even before, since the partnership agreement between sending and hosting organizations. So these standards are mainly related to the European regulations that you already know, so I will not detail it. As you know, there is more general regulation, the 375, and the delegated and the implementing regulation, which specify the procedures for applying the standards. Which are these mandatory standards and how they influence the volunteering management cycle? Oops. Okay. Here you have. So, okay. So one standard is the duty of care, safety, and security that you already know because you have treated it in previous webinar. Another one is is related to equal opportunities and non-discrimination. Then we have a standard, mandatory standard related to data protection, health and safety, and safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. So let's see in detail. off. Sorry, I have a problem with it. Okay. So the first one, equal treatment, equal opportunities, and non-discrimination. This is related mainly to the delegated regulation, which complies with EU legislations, such as the directive that you find here in the presentation. These directives are related to equal treatment as for racial and ethnic origin, and also gender equal treatment, so equal treatment men and women, and equal treatment in employment. So what should sending organization do as for complying with this standard? Sending organizations should have a procedure, a policy, an internal policy according to this standard, and should commit to its principles in all the phases of the volunteering management cycle. So, for example, of course, in the procedures of identification. So since the identification of the task related to the needs assessment done together with the hosting organization, in the phase of the identification and selection of the volunteers, of course, because these principles should be integrated also, for example, in the vacancies that are published for selecting the volunteers. In the preparation of the volunteers too, since the EUAV volunteer have to be briefed about the internal policies of the sending organizations related to these standards. And of course, in the management of the volunteers, both previous of the deployment and during the deployment itself. Moreover, the sending organization should also support the hosting ones in implementing policies related to this standard. So this can be done by a training related to it. It can be done, for example, in the capacity building programs. It should be a good opportunity for doing it. And of course, should be trained also all the staff of the sending and hosting organizations in relation to this standard. Another mandatory standard that should be considered is related to safeguarding children and vulnerable adults. So this standard comply mainly to the delegated regulation of EUAV Volunteers Initiative that is coherent with EU legislation and needs to be coherent also to the relevant legislation of both sending and hosting organizations. This is valid for all these mandatory standards actually. So these need to consider both the European and the national legislations of both partners. What sending organizations should do for complying with this standard? They should have an internal policies related to it. Of course, they should prevent the abuse through the process of selection, of induction, and training of the EUAV volunteer. So as you can see, also the standard is related to different phases of the volunteering management cycle, since the process of the selection of the volunteer, through also the induction phase of the EUAV volunteer, because the EUAV volunteer should be informed about this internal policy of the sending organization during the induction that has to be done before and at the arrival of the country of deployment. And of course, informing also the EUAV volunteer about the risk, and so that to prevent these issues. Other mandatory standard is related to health and safety. This is mainly complying to the implementing regulation of the EUAV Volunteers Initiative. That, of course, also in this case, as in the other ones, is complying with European legislations. In this case, the European directive are mainly related to safety and the health of workers or during the working time, but also compliant with, oops, I heard something. I don't know.
Don't worry, it's like when somebody enters the session,
Okay.
the notification sent.
Okay. And also, yeah, complying to the national legislations as seen for the other standards that that are related to all the volunteering management cycle. As for health and safety, sending organizations should also, in this case, have an internal policies that include guidelines on physical and mental health for guaranteeing the well-being of the EUAV volunteer. And in particular, for the EUAV Volunteer Initiative, the sending organization should develop with the hosting organization a policy for ensuring the well-being of the volunteer. Also in this case, as in the previous one, the EUAV volunteer should be informed about it and made aware of it through the phase of the induction before and just arrived in the country of deployment. As for this standard, the sending organization should ensure that the EUAV volunteer is covered by the medical and travel insurance, and that completes a medical checkup before the departure. As for the insurance, this is mainly managed by the European agency. So the sending organization should just indicate the data of the EUAV volunteer to the agency that is contracted directly by EACEA. But this is the responsibility of the sending organization. So as you can see, this standard affects both the identification and the selection of the volunteers, because of course we need to take in account health and safety standard also in the phase of the identification of the task and the identification of the volunteers. It affects the preparation phase because the EUAV volunteer need to be informed about it during the induction phase. Of course, it affects also the deployment phase and the post-deployment one. So once the EUAV volunteer comes back in its country, because the sending organization should facilitate medical checkup, also with psychological sessions after the volunteers come back in their home country. Final mandatory standard relates to data protection. This is quite common. Let's say data protection is related mainly to delegated regulation of the EUAV Volunteers Initiative. It complies also in this case with EU legislations, mainly relative to the protection of individuals as for personal data, and also needs to comply with national legislations, both of the country of the sending and of the hosting organizations. As for these issues, the sending organization should ensure that the abuse of the personal data of candidates and of selected EUAV volunteers are prevented. So sending organizations should process only relevant data related to the candidates and to the volunteers, and guarantee that just the authorized personnel access to them. These affect, let's say, both the identification and the selection of the volunteers, of course, the preparation too, because of course the EUAV volunteer need to be aware of this right of protection of his or air data. It affects also the phase just consequent, let's say, the training of the EUAV volunteer, since as maybe you know, candidates EUAV volunteer need to attend a mandatory training. After that, and after receiving a feedback from the trainers, the candidates not yet selected for the deployment can be in any case included if the feedback of the trainers is positive, can be included in a list of possible EUAV volunteers. Of course, this inclusion in this list needs to be made just after the request to the candidate volunteer related to this initiative, so cannot be done directly. I don't know if there are some questions about this part. I don't know if you want to share your experience as for the respect of these standards in your organization or in other volunteering projects that you made. I don't see.
There's Susanna, I think.
Yes, just a short remark that these standards and obligations are really detailed. Well, we haven't been participated in the EVS, but we also had some volunteering projects earlier at HB, and we tried to put emphasis also on data protection. And when we were sending volunteers and signing them a contract, we really want them to make it seriously. I mean, that they also with their signatures and with our signatures, so it is both sides. And well, it doesn't sound that important, but there are some cases when it can be very important to be taken in a serious matter. But I'm sure you all have some stories to share on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna, for sharing this experience. I saw that Mira has a question.
Yes, I have a question concerning what you mentioned about the safe and health standards and plans that the sending organization is supposed to have. If you're sending people on another continent or so far away, isn't it much more important that the hosting organization has such plans, because you're away from them like hundreds of kilometers, and if something happened, maybe it's better to as a sending organization to be sure that the hosting organization has such a policy.
Yes, of course, and thanks a lot for having raised the question, because actually what the regulations say is this point. So actually, yes, the sending organization should have an internal policy on these issues and should guarantee that the hosting organization respect the standards of this policy. So developing together with the hosting organization a specific policy related to health and safety for the well-being of the EUAV volunteer. So of course the two sides are related, but it is important that the sending organization monitor these aspects.
Great. Any other question? Okay.
Okay, so maybe we pass to the other part related to the partnership between sending and hosting organization. Okay, so this is based too on the delegated regulation mainly of the EUAV Volunteers Initiative. Which are the objectives of this partnership between sending and hosting organization, and which can be all the members of this partnership agreement? So the objectives are the definition of the arrangements between all the partners involved in the projects related to the initiative, so both in the deployment program, in the capacity building one, and in the technical assistance one. The sending and hosting organization that participate, that are included but in this partnership agreement should comply with the EU regulation related to EUAV volunteers. But also other organizations can be included in this partnership agreement if they have a peculiar expertise in some issues. For example, as GVC, we have foreseen a project that includes also some hosting organization that are very trained in communication issues, others that are very expert in disaster risk reduction, so this is possible. Another point, general point of this partnership agreements relates to the capacity building and the technical assistance programs. So if the project is related to this program, the sending and the hosting organization can also not being yet certified, but needs to have undergone a process of certification. On the contrary, if the project responds to emergency operations, the partnership can be formed just by sending organizations. So in this case, very peculiar case, there is no need to involve also hosting organization. Then the regulation also explains us which are the main principles of the partnership agreement. But before passing to this part, I would like to ask you, according to you, which are the principles that you will consider for establishing a partnership with another organization?
Based on your experience.
Any idea about it?
What about then about some transparency?
Transparency.
The principle.
Yes, of course. This is very important principles for establishing a trustable partnership, no?
To have a good communication and to share responsibilities.
Of course, responsibilities and roles maybe in the project. Others idea? Maybe also sharing, yes, the responsibilities in the management of the activities, but also in the management of the budget, no, of the financial issues.
Maybe something about the equality among the partners.
Yes. So let's see what the delegated regulation tells us. And of course, there are these principles we talked about. So transparency, responsibility and accountability of both partners, mutual trust and respect, complementarity. This value of the complementarity is very important, and you can see it also by the fact that you can include also organization having specificities and not being sending on or hosting organizations. Then the value of mutuality, of resources, objectives to reach, the flexibility, the adaptability, the equality among partners, of course, and of course having a shared value, shared values, and a shared vision, which allows to implement an action together. When we need to sign the partnership agreement. So as you know, in the EUAV Volunteer Initiative, the first action to be carried for any program and action is a need assessment. The need assessment is the first phase of an action related to the EUAV Volunteer Initiative, and it has to be carried out by the hosting organization, but in cooperation with the sending organization. After the need assessment, so after having identified which are the local needs for the hosting organization and the local community, the partnership agreement needs to be signed. And after this signature, we can implement the action. So what to include in this partnership agreement that we need to sign between sending and hosting organization? Which are your experiences as for this kind of agreements? Which are the information that normally your organization include in this contract? I don't know if you had already experiences in signing a partnership agreement in any project. It doesn't have to be related forcefully to international ones. It can be more general, because normally it can affect also project made in different contexts, also at a national one.
The Erasmus Plus agreement between different organizations would be one example, of course.
Sorry, I did not understand very well.
The Erasmus Plus agreements that we sign, of course, between different organizations. But that's not really much. Well, there is, of course, an assessment of why we do it, mostly within the Erasmus Plus projects.
What do you include normally in these agreements? Which are the main points?
See, I never signed one.
Sorry, because I don't hear you very well. So
sorry. I know we have the agreements, but I never signed. I never had to. I myself never had to sign one off. So
okay.
What about the others? Like I know most of us, we've been experiencing EBS projects, so we have partnership agreements there.
I can tell. We must include the information about the partners and their roles and the responsibilities, about the volunteer, which are his tasks, and what is offered to the volunteer, information about the budget and how the budget is shared, about prevention standards, or and in case something happens, it must be included in the volunteering agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So the volunteer should know what happens if the project stops.
Exactly how to handle the situation also. No?
And,
Exactly.
Thank you. Yes, just be aware that at this phase we are not talking about the agreement including the volunteer, but just the partnership agreement between sending and hosting organizations. So at this phase, we do not have the volunteer as a third part included in the agreement. This will be made in a phase that is consequent. So this partnership agreement is just the first phase of the implementation of a project after the need assessment. I think we will talk after about the volunteering agreement, including both sending, hosting, and volunteer. But of course, there are some of these points that are also foreseen in the partnership agreement. So, for example, sorry, I was arrived at the break, but it's not the case now.
Not yet, but don't worry.
So the minimum issues to include in the partnership agreement, according to the delegated regulation, are the decision-making procedures among the sending and hosting organizations, how to work together, the working practices, the financial arrangements, so of course the division of the budget, as we were talking about, and the financial management, so who has the responsibility of what, the communication channels between the stakeholders, so of course also the contacts of the parties involved are included in the contract. And then specific work plan and activities, including also a calendar and the task allocation. So the responsibilities of each partner as for the implementation of the activities. And the roles of each partners as for the management and involvement of the EUAV volunteers. If something wrong happens between partners, we need to foresee also in the partnership agreement the procedures for handling complaints and for resolving conflicts among the parties. And in the last case, the procedures also for the exit of a partner. So the consequences of the exit of the partner as for the financial implications and the contractual ones. These are the minimum issues that the regulation asks us to include in the partnership agreement. But of course, other points can be added too, so these are not the only ones. Don't know if you have any comment about it?
Some questions or impressions. How do you see this partnership? And like, do you see some differences at this point, like in the view of EUAV volunteers and the ones that you are normally used to using when deploying volunteers? I imagine that, for example, for you, Palint, like when you deploy to your third country offices, maybe it's quite slightly different, right? Because, but how do you see it?
Yeah, I was about to ask this. Yeah, this is a question. So, what is if the hosting organization is the third country office of one of the sending organizations? So, do we still need to do the same partnership agreement, or how is it?
As for it, I think yes, in theory, but Kasia, if you can support me, I think so, but
yeah, I mean, in so far, the idea is that the procedure is the same, like it's the same, because you have to bear in mind that, okay, this is your third country office, but it is treated as a certified hosting organization that had to go through the certification process. So basically it's a subject, normally it should be the same. Of course, this is like a bit smoother, and yeah, you are actually signing agreement between your branch and headquarters. But the idea, since we treat them as a separate hosting organization, and the idea so far is to follow the same procedure.
Yeah, even if, of course, being part of the same organization, I think it's more something related to the formal structure of the action. But yes, normally it's not tricky as a partnership with an external organization, of course.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, just to add on this, because we had the same issue the other day with our partners. So I think there's, on the one hand, this big agreement, let's say, with several European partners and several country hosting partners and all that. And then there is, let's say, the second layer or second level agreement between a specific sending organization and a specific hosting organization to manage specific issues of each mission and each volunteer and all that. And in this case, we were talking about that, and of course, to do an agreement with yourself, it sounds a bit weird, but in the end, it's quite useful to know who is responsible in the end, because we know when the same organization is the sending and the hosting, at some point the management can be merged, but it's important to know that in the end someone has to be attentive and say, okay, this must be done and this must be done. So yeah, it could be some type of agreement, not between directors, let's say, because the director is the same person, but between chief officers or something like that, just to know, to share the roles and to have the tasks clear. But I think this is somehow different.
And yeah, like exactly, like just to have the clear image on the decision making. Like if you have a look on the issues, right, included in the partnership agreement. So you have to be clear how the decision making procedures are in place there and so on. Yeah, like just to have the clear image there. Any further question? Any other questions? Is it clear so far? Thumbs up or the little yes? Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Georgia. So the next slide, actually, that Georgia showed a moment ago.
Yes.
It's time for the break. So we'd like to have a break. Like, let's make it 10 minutes then, and see you after the break to dig into the main issue that we are discussing today. Thank you so much, and see you in 10.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.
Alejandro, we have a little break, 10 minutes break. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm having some internet connection problems. So thanks for your help.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully it won't be fixed. So.
Okay,
See you soon.
See you. Ciao.
Bye-bye. Ciao.
Okay, welcome back. Are we coming back? We have David. Great. We have Valent. No, we still don't have Valent. We have Alejandro. Great. Ah, yeah, we have Valent. Mira, are you there? We have Peter. Okay. Ah, yeah, Mira is there. Okay. And we're missing Georgia. I'm sure she's joining any minute now. Okay, so since we would like to keep to the time and to the schedule so that we have enough time for the group work, which I believe will be very interesting, and the quality, not quantity, I would like to then give the floor to Blanca that will guide us through the first section and explain the methodology. So, one very important question. Do we have the cards? Yes. No, I see that David's also, no? Can you, do you have some?
David, don't you have anything green or red or orange around there? If it's
I
not
will make it, no problem.
Okay, so please do.
Perfect.
Then Blanca, Mira will be writing us on the chat.
Okay.
So if you want, I can just tell you, because you will be having the
because with the full screen I cannot the chat.
Yes.
So
Okay, so I'll be monitoring on this. Okay, so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay, so here we go. This is again the presentation. Okay, well, sorry. So just to recapitulate, here you have again the same picture that Georgia showed already, and it's just to keep you thinking about it. Okay, now we're going to more into detail in the volunteering management cycle, but as you can see, it's already touched by this partnership agreement and by this legal framework of the European Union. Okay, so we cannot detach one thing from the other. We're going to see other things, but that must be always there. Okay, so as you can see, we have divided this cycle in different steps, which are related to specific standards that are required by the program. You know the standards already, and also you may know that they are not only we have highlight them in certain steps of the cycle, but of course we have to take them into consideration throughout the whole project. But we have used this system just to make it easier to understand. Okay, but don't think, okay, we only have to take into account the standard 8 in the beginning and then we forget. Okay, just to remind that the most important thing or the most interesting thing is that this is a dialogue. In the end, you already work with volunteers, you have a lot of experience, so it will be very interesting, your feedback, your questions, your contributions. In the end, I guess all this is very familiar to you, in at least in abstract terms. Or overall terms, we will try just to focus on the specificities of this program. Okay? And also we don't have too much time to go into detail of anything, but maybe with your questions we can touch upon specific issues you find more interesting. So here we go. Are you ready? Okay. Perfect. So we go with the first part, the first phase we have identified. And as you see, there's a question there. That's why it's necessary that you have your cards within your reach hand. In every step, I will pose you some short questions that you have to answer very, very quickly. And then some of you can make a longer contribution, okay? So first of all, have you ever made a tasks identification for volunteers? Okay. Bali.
Mira says yes.
Mira says yes. Perfect. Okay, all of you. Do you have a template for that? More or less. We will see what that means. Mirela? Okay.
Mira says yes, kind of.
Okay. Was it for international volunteering or for volunteering in third countries? Okay. Yes. Very well. And last question, was it in coordination with a local organization? Okay, very well. So maybe Balint, you asked yes in each case. Well, not the template was not so sure. It was a bit so. I don't know if you can very briefly, in 1 minute, tell us your experience in this regard.
Yes. Well, what do you mean for template? So is it a questionnaire or what do you?
Yeah, something like that. If you have a template like a checklist or a format already done to follow these tasks identification, to guide you, a document to guide you that is always like that.
Like model, no? Like a model.
Yeah, like a model.
Okay, so it's for the identification, not for presentation of the tasks.
That's it, for the identification of the tasks.
Okay, for identification, we don't have a written template. It was more oral discussion and things like this. So not an official template. We have some rules to follow, but not an official template like this.
Okay. And just for curiosity, to which countries were you said it was also to third countries? So
it's Congo, DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo.
Okay, very interesting. So now here we go with the contents of the presentation. First of all, in each slide you will find the square about regulation, okay? And I want to know if you have your regulation with you. I think, I guess you already had access to it, right? To the main regulation 375, the implementing regulation, and the delegated regulation. Okay, if you don't have it with you, I encourage you to print it out at some point and to have it as your, I don't know, here we say our Bible, but it could be not so correct. It can be your bedside book, your pillow book, your Quran, your whatever. But it's very important that you have it as a reference always, okay? Because everything is written there. We are going to comment on some things, but everything is detailed in this regulation. So for any doubt, for any very specific point, just you can have a look on it, okay? So in each case, we will remark the most important articles. For example, in this case, 4 of the implementing regulation and the annex, and also the annex of the delegated regulation, okay? So it might sound boring, but regulation here is very important as a reference. Okay, so here we go. Well, again, this is very evident. What we have to do is to define the tasks and the profile of the volunteer we're looking for. But what is newer here, what is more specific from this program, is a competence framework. Okay, so in the delegated regulation, I don't know if you have it with you, but it's here. Okay, you will see a table here with the competence framework that is used all through the all through the project. So since we make the tasks identification and the terms of reference, you have to take into consideration these competences to be able to assess and to monitor all the candidates. Okay, you will see it refers to transversal competences, also to other specific competencies of the program, and also to technical competencies depending on the field of the volunteering. But it's very important because we will be talking about a learning and development plan, which will always be referred to this mainly. Okay. So yeah, don't forget, this is very important. So I won't go into much detail because in fact it's you already touched upon this in the first webinar about the identification of tasks and how it works. So the important thing is that in the end you must have a terms of reference document, which it's very important to involve the hosting organization in this task identification, and out of it there will be the vacancy announcement. Okay, so any questions so far, or contributions, suggestions? No? Can we continue? Okay, so be ready with your cards. Have you ever made an online application form for volunteering calls? Mirela, okay. Okay. What does Mira say?
No.
Ah, okay, no. Very well. Did many volunteers apply? Okay.
Many. What do you mean? Sorry.
That's it. What's many, what's not many, what are we used to? Okay. Do you have an interview template for volunteers? Oh, David, very, very original. Thank you. Okay. Okay, very well. And the last question, did you interview all the candidates? Okay. No. Okay. Very well. So I don't know if you want to say anything in particular, but otherwise I would ask Mirela, just for curiosity, you said you have made an online application previously. Which platform or which system did you use for that?
We use Google and we post the application online. And we share it through Facebook, Gmail, or through our volunteering networks.
Okay, very well. Anyone else? Thank you, Mirela. Anyone else want to share the experience? Okay. Then we can continue. As you see now, we are in the identification and selection of volunteers. Again, as you can see there's a lot of regulation related to it, and we have different actions to take. Of course, very evident. You have to make a call. Then there's the submission of applications. We have to review them. To do interviews. In your case, most of you or all of you did not interview all the volunteers, but which is normal. It's what we do in this case. And what is new here? New or maybe different from other programs. First of all, we have to select candidates for a training that will be provided by ECO. Okay, Georgia already mentioned something about the training, or Peter in the beginning. And so in the very beginning, we have a selection process that we have to agree with the hosting organization, and both of us have to intervene there. But we will select a short list of people to go to this training. Then after this training, we will be able to select the final person to be deployed for each position. Okay, and again, we are already getting more familiar with this competences framework. We will start to do our learning needs and suitable training assessment. Okay, what does it mean? That regarding depending on the profile of our selected volunteer for the training, we will start this plan to know which are the competencies which are needed for more improvement, the orientation we want to give him or her for the optional modules of the training and all that. Okay, so I will just mention, just to differentiate, in this case, the vacancy announcement has to be done through the EU platform, EUAV platform. Of course, we can make the dissemination also through other channels. It's very welcome, but in the end, everything has to refer and to link to this platform. Then the online application form also has to be linked in this platform. Okay. The announcement must be done at least in English. Then maybe other extra languages can be welcome, but at least it has to be done in English. Okay, so as there you can see the steps, different steps which are evident. But let's go to the phase when we already have confirmation of the candidates who will go to the training. Then, together with the candidate, with the hosting organization, we will start to develop this learning and training plan. And then we will send this plan to the training providers, to the ECO training providers, so that they can take it into consideration for the training. Okay, I don't know if this is clear. In any case, here you have the final expected output or product. So we'll have the vacancy published, the shortlisted candidates for training, and we will have started our learning, and I call it in this case training path, a plan, because it's prior to the training and it will orientate the training, but it's the learning and development plan. Okay, I don't know if I'm making myself understood, or you want me to go more into detail into something, or you have things to share with the group. No comments?
In the meantime, Mira was actually sharing some thoughts on the group. She was just going back to what about the templates? They don't have exactly the online template, but they collect a lot of contacts by email. So people who want to volunteer send the emails asking about the current possibilities to volunteer, and the opposite. So organizations that need volunteers are also contacting them. So this is how it works in their case. And actually Balint commented to that it's very similar for them. Maybe he wants to expand on it.
Okay, yeah, it's very, of course, as I was telling you, many dissemination means are welcome, but the platform has also to be referred there. So in case you have your call, whatever, in the official platform, but you have specific people in mind, specific people or groups or communities you want to email, what you can do is provide with basic information and then give the link to the platform, so that there they can access all the information in the platform and then access the online application form from the platform. This would be the case. All right? Perfect. So then we continue to the preparation prior to the deployment. So, have you ever hosted apprentice volunteers? Valint, Mirella, you're thinking.
Apprenticeship, like trainees, yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's it. Okay.
what we were discussing, that there's this possibility, no? Like for junior volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry, so it's at our headquarters, so not in third countries.
Headquarters.
No. We hosted EVS volunteers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but let's say, yeah, volunteers as such, not candidate volunteers who are being trained to be actual volunteers, let's say. Okay, very well. Did you, in case you did you evaluate the apprentice volunteers' performance? More or less? No? David? Okay. And do you have a template or procedure for that evaluation? Okay, no. And no. Okay. And finally, have you ever organized induction sessions for volunteers? Yes. No. You love ketchup, David. Or what's that?
Mira says yes.
Okay, Mira says yes. And what about the templates or procedures for the induction?
So again, some model to follow, and yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Very well. So I saw. Okay. There's no. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Okay, who wants to share? Because I saw a lot of mixed impressions. I don't know. I'm curious about the so from Valint about the evaluation. What does it mean? You evaluated, but not so much, or maybe in 1 minute you can share something.
Well, yeah. So both we have in Hungary, we have both volunteers and trainees here, and we do evaluate them, but we don't have a template or written procedure of it. It's usually oral evaluation, and yeah, so it's not
okay, like an informal meeting or conversation, right?
Yes, and we write let's say a recommendation letter usually, where we write about the performance also.
Okay, very well. So let's see what can we highlight in this case. There you see the regulation and different activities to do. So what is important here during the training of the volunteers, I mean this training provided by ECHO, by the agency, we have to monitor the volunteers to be in touch with them, I don't know, in case they need anything. We have to be visible and supportive. And once we select the candidates out of the training, some of them, the junior volunteers, can be subjected to an apprenticeship period. So now with apprentice, we are going to refer to this. The senior candidates would will immediately become deployable, or people or volunteers who can already be deployed without this apprenticeship period. So during this apprenticeship, it's necessary to do a briefing and to do an evaluation. Okay, it's very important, and this evaluation has to be based again on the competences framework, right? So important things in this case. At the beginning of the apprenticeship, we have to, along with the volunteer, update this learning plan, learning and development plan. They finish the training, but they have new needs. They always have a self-assessment after the EU training. So they will have points to improve. They will have new tasks during the apprenticeship, new goals. So all that has to be written down according to this to the plan, based on the competences. Okay, and after that, in the end of the apprenticeship period, there will be a self-assessment by the volunteer, which has to be considered, but also, of course, an evaluation by the sending and hosting organization. Again, it's always necessary to involve the hosting organization, right? And then take the decision on the volunteer if he or she is able to be deployed or no. It can be, it's contemplated in the regulation that in case of poor proficiency during the apprenticeship, he or she is not eligible for deployment. Okay, so it's important to it goes accordingly with what Peter mentioned about prepared volunteers and all that. Okay, and then of course once we have the group, the roster of volunteers who are going to be deployed, either those who have gone through the apprenticeship and those who are already senior, it's necessary the pre-deployment briefing or induction session, as Georgia mentioned. Okay.
Sorry,
Any question?
I have a question here. Yes. Sorry, maybe I missed something. It's just not totally clear for me that. So in the process, in the selection process, there is a compulsory apprentice process period, or.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I should have started maybe from the beginning. When you make your terms of reference, you can ask for a senior candidate or for a senior volunteer or for a junior volunteer. In cases of junior volunteers, we can foresee that an apprenticeship period is there, okay, but it's not compulsory.
Mm-hmm.
There can be junior volunteers who don't go through apprenticeship.
This at the project proposal stage, when you do the needs assessment and when you have a look on you define what profile you are seeking. Then you define whether it is for the junior profile. You can you want, for example, prepare even more the junior volunteer in your headquarters, and it can be from 1 month up to 6 months. This apprenticeship. This is not compulsory. This is the option that the call gives you, accordingly to the needs assessment that you made.
Thanks, but it's a good idea. So this is what we actually do, or try to introduce in other volunteer processes, selections, to have them in our office for a short time. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's just to be clear, it's optional for junior volunteers. Okay, it's optional. And what is important here for the initiative, these volunteers are not exactly volunteers, or are only candidates for EU AIDCSO volunteers when they have a positive evaluation of their apprenticeship. Okay, so until this final evaluation, we will always talk about candidates. Okay, just to understand better when you will read the regulations. Okay. So any further questions regarding this or comments? You want to share something to highlight what is new here, or if there's something you don't catch up? Well, I didn't explain very well, or no, I can understand it's a no. We can continue. Okay, perfect. So we are near the pause, but before, let's go with logistic aspects. Okay, again, this will be very familiar to you, but there are some specificities. So this is a question I already put, but have you ever deployed a volunteer to a third country? Yes, okay. Okay. Did she or he arrive at destination and survived in the hosting country? Oh, congratulations. Very good. Good to know. Was it in coordination with a hosting organization? Okay. Mirela, would you? Okay, it was a no. Didn't deploy. Okay, and were allowances and accommodation provided? Okay. David, did you provide with allowances and accommodation to your deployed volunteers? No. Yes, let's say yes. Why not? Okay. And what about mentoring? Was mentoring provided? Okay. Okay, cool. So. Okay, so of course, every comment is welcome, or more specification on your experiences. But otherwise, maybe David could tell us why this mentoring was there but was not there, or what happened with that.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with that because I'm not following this project in Greece. So some kind of mentoring was for sure, but I'm not sure what kind.
Okay, and I don't know, maybe someone can do the can share the experience, or we continue and then we see what comes up. Maybe Balint, because your volunteers survived in DRC.
Mostly.
So, congratulations. And do you have further comments regarding these questions?
Well, not many comments. It was mainly EVS project, and there it's compulsory to have a mentor. Well, of course, I was not present there, so it's more about the hosting organization who could tell whether the mentoring was good or not. But my feeling is that it was not the best, so it could be further improved. So the mentoring is a very good thing, but it can be further improved. While in this case, where in case we are talking about a senior person, maybe it's not that important. It's a question I don't know. I'm not familiar how is mentoring here in the aid volunteer project.
Okay, we will talk about mentoring more in detail.
Yes.
Okay, well, more in detail, yeah, we will mention it again, and maybe you can put specific questions regarding that. So again, there you have a set of articles talking about logistic aspects. important things to remember is the insurance. You may already be familiar to it because it's very similar to EVS. In fact, in the end, it's the commission who contracts an agency, an insurance company, and we have to register the volunteers. But what is new here is that we have to ensure that they undergo a medical check. And of course, that they also take the compulsory vaccinations that are needed, depending on the context of deployment and all that. Again, allowances and accommodation have to be provided. In this case, the allowances are a bit bigger than for EVS, because it's not just a very basic pocket money, but it covers more aspects. We have to organize the travel, provide mentoring, both from the hosting organization and from the sending organization. And of course, we have to ensure adequate working conditions. The steps to follow here, I mean, I think things are very evident, especially if you already have experience with deployment. So what we could highlight here, again, is the need for medical checkup. It's very important, the induction, pre-deployment, and also in country. It's a cross-cutting issue, and many things have to be mentioned. They are regarding, in this case, regarding safety and hygiene conditions and all that. Regarding the accommodation, it's up to the hosting organization to provide it and to manage it with the landlord or whatever, but we are responsible. We have to ensure that it works properly. Also, we have to cover the visa costs, although both the hosting and sending organization have to support, depending on the specific bureaucracy of the case. And also we have to organize the travel. What is interesting here is that there are cases where not only the return travel is covered, but an extra return ticket to the place of deployment can be covered. It's specified in the regulation, but basically when there's a very long deployment, like 18 months deployment, or when it's from 6 months on, and the person has a relative death or needs a parental leave, things like that. Okay, there are cases when we can cover an extra travel. And regarding the subsistence allowances, I will just show you very briefly. Maybe Kasia can send the.
Sure, I'll send the link.
Yeah, the link. Sorry. Okay, I'm doing something wrongly.
Don't worry.
Yes.
It just takes time when you click on from the presentation to open. But we also had this link in our first session. Yes, and so we.
Can you see my screen, my new screen?
Yes.
Okay. So I make this smaller. So here you can see each year the Commission publishes a list with the monthly allowances that are due. Okay, this is for 2016. So, for example, Balin for Congo, you would have to pay 794 euros per. Yeah, sorry. Kasia, I thought you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
I have a question, sorry.
Okay.
So it's not very clear for me, this list. So there is also European countries listed. How come, or is
very well. You anticipated to my comment. You're a good.
And also to make it more complicated, it's our special case, Congo. There is two Congo.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
Why is there only one? So
yeah, that's true. Let me see. There is DR.
The other is not shouldn't be there right now because it's not on the list of the priority countries this time.
Yeah,
the security issues.
Yeah, in cases of volunteers cannot be deployed to countries in conflict with a manifested conflict. So maybe that's the case. And yeah, pardon, Kasia, continue.
No, sorry. It was just like going back to your question, Valent, when we were talking about it. So each year there's a new assessment, a new list before the call will be published. So the DRC can actually go on the list if the situation allows, like accordingly to the indicators that the ECHO is using to assess the risk, possible risk. In the category that it will fall into, there are 9 categories and so on. So before each call, there's a new list.
What about the European countries?
Okay, about the European countries, thank you for putting it there. We also have to pay monthly allowances and to provide with accommodation to the volunteers during the apprenticeship period. Okay, so let's say we are a German organization and we have an apprenticeship. Each month we have to pay him this amount of money. Okay, so that's why also European countries are there. Okay, so we can continue with the presentation. And yeah, we were mentioning, oh, sorry, I anticipated the break. Now it's better, sorry. So we were mentioning the allowances, and then also it's a logistic aspect that goes all through the deployment is the designation of mentors, both from our side and from the hosting organization, and it has to be identified also in the contract we will sign, as we will see later. Okay. Also, don't forget, Georgia already said it, that all also after deployment, when the volunteers are back, we have to ensure that they go through a medical checkup. And what is also different from EVS, we will pay them a resettlement allowance. The amount in this case is not fixed, but it will depend on the period of time they've spent in the country of deployment. Okay. So yeah, basically in the end we have to make sure that our volunteers is insured, and that they have a positive medical checkup and all the vaccinations that are needed. We have to, this is also a cross-cutting issue, we have to ensure the adequate working conditions, and we have specificities in the annex of the implementing regulation. Also for the housing, for example, we have to ensure that minimum hygiene things are provided. We have to ensure that we have good communication or good access to health installments and things like that. But as always, you can have a look at the regulation. The visa is issued, and we have the subsistence installments and resettlement installments, and of course we keep the receipts to prove that. So I know you must be very eager for the post because I've been talking for too long. But before your comments or questions are welcome.
Also on the logistic aspects, like given your experience with deploying, like do you see some differences or there's something that draws your attention? as you have seen, there is we talked about it also in the first webinar. So there is also this resettlement allowance, which is actually some also innovative element that you can include in your, that you actually are obliged to include in your budget. So the small amount of money, but yeah, for the volunteers when they come back. Any comments on this? I think we need a break then.
Okay, yeah, it means the break is needed. So congratulations, the break is here. How long, Kasia?
So let's have 5 minutes break.
5 minutes. Okay.
This is just so then later we have more time for group work and discussion.
Okay, perfect.
And we finish
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. See you. Okay. So first of all, questions. I should see the camera. Okay. Do you have or use volunteering contracts? Well,
David got the cards.
Yoo-hoo!
Great.
Okay. Let's continue. Does it include confidentiality and data protection elements? Okay. Okay. I see red. Okay. And finally, is there a code of conduct or integrity policy in your organization? No. So, okay, who wants to share something? David, you said you don't include confidentiality issues in your contracts. You'll have to be attentive because in this case, data protection elements, as all of you saw regarding Georgia's presentation, is very important. Okay.
Oh, of course, we have only basic contract. It's better to have anything than nothing.
Okay, very well.
Okay.
So let's continue. Again, here you see that all of the implementing regulation, the main regulation and the delegated regulation are very important. Of course, deployment, I mean, what can we say about deployment? It's deployment. So we will highlight here things related to the contract and to this code of conduct. Okay, so basically the deployment contract has to be signed and it has to contain at least the minimum standard that are described in the regulation in article 16. But again, these are minimum elements. Okay. Many of them are very basic, like the role, the duration of the activity, who's responsible, the rights, obligation, blah blah blah. But it's important to have all those elements. What can be new in this case? That we have also to contemplate our learning and development plan and attach it to the contract. Like somehow it has to be the learning and development plan is an important element. It's also referred to in the contract. Okay, so don't forget the competence framework. And what another thing I would like to highlight in this case is that, of course, it's important to involve the hosting organization when we design and write this contract, because many issues regarding, I don't know, responsibilities of the hosting organization or things to be done there, the context. Important things have to be put there, but in the end, the deployment contract will be signed between the sending organization and the volunteer. Okay. Also, it's very important that prior to deployment, we have to inform the field office of ECHO in the country of deployment, so that they know that our volunteers are there, and yeah, I don't know, both for security issues, but also in case there are some communication activities or so. Okay. And also after deployment, don't forget that although we made a briefing prior to deployment, also in the country of deployment, a briefing is important, touching upon many issues, but security is one of them. It's very important, and it has to be done within 24 hours after the arrival. Okay, and then we mentioned this integrity policy and code of conduct. It's very related to these regulations of the European Union and these principles and all that, and it is to avoid bribery, to ensure that the volunteers have an ethical performance, that they use the image of the project or the organization adequately. Many issues. And what is important here is that in case there is a serious breach of this code of conduct, the volunteer might return prematurely to the come back, okay, before the mission finishes, because they perform a gross misconduct at some point, and the European Union is very hard in this respect. These issues are very important. Okay, so in the end, we will have our deployment contract. It will be signed. We have to make sure that we have this integrity policy and code of conduct, and we have to have an in-country briefing, remember, but also we have to do a debriefing before coming back. So let's say in the country of deployment, the volunteer arrives within 24 hours, a briefing is necessary, but also before leaving the country of deployment, a debriefing is necessary, okay? Especially to assess, to evaluate the learning and development plan, to evaluate the experience and all that. Okay, any comment? Do you have questions, or again, would you like to highlight different things? I don't know, regarding the contract, the regulation establishes minimum points, but maybe there are important issues you would like to highlight, things that you consider important to be there in the contract, or I gave you the ground to talk.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just a quick comment following your line, Blanca, also about the debriefing. I think what's also here interesting is also just to use this opportunity to show the volunteers the opportunities to stay engaged in the sector, both in the humanitarian aid sector and like how to continue volunteering in this line, which is really also interesting, and I guess we'll be talking about it in the exercise, but this is also something to bear in mind.
Yeah, thank you, Kasia.
How do you see it, the other?
Okay.
Okay.
So, no further comments? Okay.
I believe you were so clear.
Oh, sure, it was that. I'm sure of that. No, well, you know, in any case, you will always have the regulation with you, which of course knows more than me. I always refer to it. So yeah. Okay, so let's go with monitoring and evaluation. We touch upon, we mention it in this case, but it's not only something to be considered during the deployment. As we saw, the evaluation is very important from the very beginning. Since we select the candidates from the training, have to evaluate the learning plan, and also in case of apprenticeship, we also have to monitor and evaluate the performance. Okay, so it's very important, but well, we will mention it right now. Like, let's imagine we're more or less in the deployment part. Okay, so first of all, don't forget your cards. Do you have templates or formats or so for volunteers monitoring? No. Yes, so. Okay. Do you receive and incorporate the volunteers' feedback? Cool. Peter says yes. Yes, so. Okay.
Mira says yes. Sorry.
Okay. Very well. And have you ever experienced a premature return due to poor performance of the volunteer? Yes. Okay. Yes. So I think maybe it's interesting here if either Mirella or Balint or both tell us their experience with these prematurely returned volunteers.
Yes, I can say the return wasn't to poor performance without a cause, but the volunteer didn't tell in the beginning before the arrival that they had health problems. They had intolerance to lactose or something. I don't know how to say in English. And they didn't tell us even here when we did check the volunteer and we asked them if they have problems regarding health or other problems. They didn't tell us, and they had problems with food. And after this, we did go to the medical check and to check their health. And we discovered they have intolerance to lactose, and they had to. They said they prefer to come back in their country because they can be better.
Treated, like to
treated, yes,
or to prevent problems with
and food because of this.
Okay, perfect. And Balint, which was your case? Thank you, Mirella. Which was your case, Balint?
Yeah, I wrote a comment. It's well, I don't know many things about it because I was not involved personally. It's the past experience of the organization. So there will, as long as I know, bad behavior and many things that he didn't follow the rules and things like this, and others and
okay. So it was related also not so much in the, let's say, technical aspect or professional aspect, but also related to this code of conduct and
and personal behavior and things like this. Yes.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so let's see what the regulation says about monitoring and evaluation, which is also related to the mentorship. Well, we already commented that it's necessary that there is a mentor, at least one mentor from the hosting organization and the and the sending organization. In this case, it's needed to have a joint supervision and performance management procedure or way of organizing it. So in the end, it's more or less up to us to decide with the hosting organization how we do this supervision and performance management. We have to monitor and evaluate the individual performance. We have to provide a debriefing, as I told you already, a debriefing in the end of the experience, and provide with opportunities on how to keep engaged in humanitarian aid or within or not in the organization. And also we have to recognize the volunteer from a professional point of view. So the Article 6 of the delegated regulation mentions that there's not an official certificate right now for this professional recognition. Because, well, I guess you know already, this is still very new. This is the first EUAV volunteers project as such. So there are things that the Commission is doing slowly, very slowly. And yeah, this certificate doesn't exist right now, but it said that it will be based on the Youth Pass and Europass. So most probably it will be something very similar. It will mention in this case the competences framework, and the Commission will issue it, but we don't know exactly yet how it works for this professional recognition. So regarding the steps or the specificities to follow, I will just remind that the performance supervision is ongoing. Okay, the monitoring has to be an ongoing process, and from the beginning of each step, in this case from the beginning of the deployment, it's necessary to define objectives and to keep on updating this learning and development plan. And the volunteer has to also participate in defining these objectives and the learning and development plan. Okay. Of course, meetings with the line manager are evident. Apart from the final performance review, there could be a midterm review. It's not said in the regulation when this is due. It says when it's considered necessary, depending on the length. So it's more or less up to us to decide if this midterm review is necessary or not. But at least a final review must be done. And of course, the hosting organization has to provide with information on that review to us, to the sending organization. Okay, so just to summarize a bit, during the deployment, there is this ongoing monitoring, there's the mentoring, there's the evaluation. So in the end, before returning, the hosting organization has to provide with a debriefing, including, as Kasia said, the information to keep engaged in humanitarian action or active citizenship. They have to communicate to us, and also we have to provide with a debriefing when they come back to Europe. Okay, this debriefing is not only about information, about assessment and all that, but also psychological assistance and all what is needed. Also, what is important here is mentioned in the regulation. We have to keep records of the reviews we do. Okay, we have to, apart from our own information records or whatever, we need to have anonymous data available. I don't know, in case the coordination of the initiative or the Commission ask us for data or anything. So the rest of the expected products, we already mentioned them. They are, evident, and we would finish with this certificate for professional recognition. Okay, and the debriefing session and medical check. Don't forget, it's not only physical medical checkup, but also this psychological support and all that. So this is the almost final slide I will talk about with you. So if you want to say something or you have questions before continuing. No?
Have you found it clear? Any differences or something that draw your attention in the view of the projects that you developed so far, maybe? Okay, maybe then during the group work.
Okay, yeah, perfect. Then we continue so that you have more time for your group work. We're arriving to the communication and visibility part. Again, we're mentioning it now in the end, but the communication and visibility plan and activities have to be present during the whole cycle, not only the volunteering management cycle, but during the whole project. Okay, so let's ask the first question. Does your organization have one or several communication plans? So okay. Does it work? Oh, what happens with our communication plans? Fortunately, the community manager is not here. He would cry.
Mira says so also.
Okay, Mira, thanks for your feedback. Do you know the stories from the field section in the EUAV platform? Okay, it's not very well known so far among the partners. Okay, and do you think there are opportunities within your organizations for volunteers to keep engaged in humanitarian aid and active citizenship after deployment? Yes, that's great. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe David could very briefly share with us why you think that this communication plan does not work very well.
It's so we need to define like lines, not only management about emails or something like that, but real communication.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very well. So let's continue. Again, in this case, we have an article in the delegated regulation about social recognition of the volunteers, but also we have the communication and visibility plan. I guess you already have it available. If not, again, you must print it out, you must study it, assume it, and have it present throughout all the cycle of the project. Okay, because this is the basis. In fact, if you've already been familiar with other communication plans, this is just a communication plan that we have to follow. It's not many new issues, but there are some, and we will highlight some things. Of course, it asks us to have some external communications work and publicize the initiative, especially to promote engagement with the EUAV network. Again, this network is something under construction. We don't know it pragmatically yet, but it exists. It will exist very soon. And the regulation is very insistent that we have to link to use this network because it will provide support, connections, and many things. We have to promote social recognition activities for the volunteers. And it's very important from this communication plan. It applies for sending organization, hosting organization, even the ECHO and the training providers have duties in this respect, but also the volunteers. The volunteers are active in communication and visibility and have duties. So it's very important not only assume the communication plan for ourselves, but to brief the volunteers to communicate their duties. For example, to write articles in the stories from the field section of the platform, or to engage in other activities. And it's due not only through deployment, but also after deployment. It's important to do visibility activities to recognize the social contribution of the volunteers. And as Kasia mentioned before, the initiative also makes a lot of emphasis in the fact of trying to keep the volunteers engaged in active citizenship, in humanitarian aid actions, and all that. So basically, here just some things are mentioned, like examples that we could do, but basically we have to follow the communication plan, and also we have to be imaginative. It's not only about putting the logos in the templates and all that, but we can use our social media for many different actions. We can make contributions to the platform. Even we can organize different types of events. Yesterday we were talking about I won't say it because it's part of your
Don't
task.
spill the beans.
I was about to spoil everything.
Don't make it so easy.
Okay, so yeah. Perdón, segundo. Okay, yeah, sorry. So from my side, I cannot go into much more detail because we have our exercise to come, and it will be very interesting. But of course, still, if you have any doubts or contributions, you want to highlight something, suggest, or share, just this is your moment. Don't you?
On the communication side, because this is really like what actually Peter started saying, no, like also in his introduction, this dual role of volunteers here. So one, the technical side that you have agreed in your terms of reference. So given your technical expertise, according to your technical expertise, but then at the same time, volunteers, they have this very big duty in terms of the dissemination and communication, no, and raising awareness. So this is really important, and Commission is really persistent in here. They want to hear stories. They want to have communication here, because this is also about the supporting the policy, no, European humanitarian aid policy. Mm-hmm. Also, just to put it in there.
Yes, Kasia says it's very important, and it has to be considered since the very beginning for the position, for the terms of reference, and even the competences framework also mentions the ability to communicate and to do advocacy. So this is not just something that is there, that this. This thing, it's something really important for the initiative.
Can I share one experience?
Super.
It's not really just related to communication, but for the opportunities for EUAV volunteers after this EUAV volunteer experience. So we participated as GVC to the pilot projects. And actually, there are in our staff nowadays some people that were deployed as EUAV volunteers. So nowadays, I don't know exactly the details, so countries, role, etc., because I was not involved directly in it. But for our organization too, EUAV Volunteers has been a great opportunity also to get in contact with very valuable volunteers who had many competencies, even at the beginning, but during the deployment phase, they, of course, they learned a lot of professional skills. And actually, they are project managers in development projects. So I think this has been really a great opportunity also for us and for the volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
To stay in, yeah, exactly.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments here? If not, no? Yes, no? Okay, if not, then shall we go to the exercise then?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, great.
Okay, I guess.
Do you want me to share the?
I had it here. This is the communication. Okay. Here you can see the exercise. So we will be focusing on the areas of debriefing, visibility and communication, and social and professional recognition of the volunteers. You have a very basic case scenario where a team of 3 volunteers, 2 from France, 1 senior from Hungary, have just arrived from Mozambique, where they have spent 6 months with a local NGO working on food security issues. So now you have to think of the activities you, as a sending organization, would undertake after their arrival, in particular regarding to these aspects. So we will be split into 2 groups. The group A will think about logistic aspects and the debriefing that we as sending organization will provide them after the experience. And then group B will focus on this last part we mentioned about communication and visibility, to share experiences of the volunteers and the social and professional recognition, including this encouraging to stay engaged. So,
okay, great. So we'll split into the little groups. First of all, is the exercise clear? Do we know what you have to do? If not, we also will be in the little groups, but more or less, yes, no? Okay. All right, so let's go to the groups. The procedure is as always, so wait for the little window to pop on, and then we can continue. Thank you, Blanca, so much for this part.
Thanks all of you for being there.
And we'll still have time to discuss. So let's go then. 20 minutes for the group work, and then if it's fine with you to ask you 5 minutes of more of your time than agreed, then we can share our experiences in the group work, right?
Okay.
Super. That should start. Yes. The floor is
yes. Yeah, should I? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So very briefly, I also wrote now to the chat about what we discussed. So we discussed about the logistic aspects and also about the debriefing after the volunteers return. About the logistics, there are 3 important things we mentioned. The first is the medical and mental check and support, because we think that it's important after they return, not just physical but the mental support to the volunteers. Another important thing is the reintegration, because after half year or 1 year or even more in a third world country, it's a very different situation back to Europe. So reintegration process is needed. And another very important thing in this project is the allowance that there's a small monthly allowance that all the returning volunteers would get. And about debriefing, we discussed a bit more about this. So there should be one official form of reporting that's needed from the volunteers, and there are sessions of individual or joint debriefing after the mission. We discussed about the importance of the joint and both the individual debriefing and reporting. And Peter told us about their experience that they usually organize a few days sessions for the returning volunteers, together with the formal volunteers and staff, if I understood it right. And this helps them to define next steps for their life and for the next period. And the third important thing about debriefing is how to get how to stay with the volunteers involved, to get them involved after their return. So there are, for example, in our case, we involve them as local volunteers. So we invite them to our events to make them presentations and different ways of storytelling about their mission, and afterwards they can be involved as local volunteers. So more or less this is what we discussed.
Super, perfect. And also just thank you so much, Balin. And also what we discussed, I mean, we started discussing, actually Mira asked the question like, how is it in the experience, like, or maybe in the study that Peter was mentioning, how is it going? Like, how is it, like, do the volunteers actually get involved, or like what's the experience there, if they stay engaged, or how is it going?
So we work together with it, like our studies are basically based on examples in Ireland, because we are just starting with it ourselves in the UK. In Ireland, we saw that 60% of volunteers who went to the Global South want to stay engaged, but only 25% of them does. One of the reasons is that they find it hard to reintegrate in the communities, to find something to care about. But we discovered now, we did now a completely new project in which we did this group debriefings. And what you could see is they could find something they could care for together. So we let them first reflect on their experiences. And then we go into like, okay, what do you care about in your local community, and how can we, what kind of projects can we send you to, or help you to and we see that they become much more active, but at the moment you only put on this across 3 European countries. We're going to expand that group to more than 100 in 2017.
Okay, super. Many some comments here on the debriefing from the other group, like maybe discuss something related to that or logistics? If not, Okay, then let's hear your thoughts from the second group on the communication and social recognition.
Yeah, Mirela and David are going to introduce it. I will just mention that, yeah, effectively, we also dealt with social recognition, so it's very related to with the engagement and all that. So we also touch upon that. So Mirela and David will tell you out some.
Great.
We talked about what we would do when the volunteers are coming back in our country. We organize briefings and meetings with the volunteers in order to discover what competencies and new acquisitions they have. And after this, the volunteers will prepare some materials for the visibility of the project. And there will be organized public sessions for other volunteers to tell their experiences, but also to the experiences will be shared on local, regional, national, and on the EUAV platform. Regarding the integration of the volunteers, they could discover they can work as mentors, for example, or coordinator of other volunteers in other projects. Also, an important thing is to talk about the countries where they were deployed, because they could discriminatory judgments could be, I don't know how to say.
Yeah, like that they can yeah, judge like the,
yes.
Yeah, we understand. Super.
Thank you. Maybe David wants to add anything.
Mirela said very well. So just another accent on hosting country and volunteers. So if you are there like 6 months, you see many other opportunities to help, to volunteer. So if you came back and share everything, that you have many new projects.
Super. Perfect. I hope you, super, thank you so much for that. Great. I think we, well, okay, we are 7 minutes late. Thank you so much. Just give me 2 minutes more. I will just, quick announcement. But first of all, thank you so much to all of you for participating, and especially thanks to Peter, to Georgia, Blanca, and Sandra for preparing the session. I hope it served very well for you, and it just makes you even more eager to get to know more and just really put your hands on the job, let's say, and looking forward to implementing actually EUAV project and seeing everything in practice. Before we conclude, one announcement more. As you probably have seen on our group, Volunteer Europe and on Volunteer Europe platform, I posted there the link to the questionnaire we would like to invite you to participate in, to see how the gender approach is being integrated in your organizations, if it is, or what is there to be done, and especially with the reference to the volunteer management processes, so that we can, as you know, in January we'll have the next session on this, on the gender approach, and we want to make it as tailored as possible, and also we prepare the guide that will serve you to actually introduce the gender perspective in your respective procedures. So I would really invite you to go on the site, and it takes really, it's very short questionnaire, and we really look forward to your answers there. And the last thing, please tweet. And when you tweet, please use our hashtag EUAV for us. You have all the information on the site too. And of course, the official one, EUAV volunteers. So let's take the group picture, and big thank you. And thank you for being with us. So 1, 2, 3. And yes, I have it. Great. Thank you, and keep in touch, and have a wonderful evening.